Crosstalk with Sarah Cross, a place for radio wanderers to learn about the highest laws and other related topics, with the occasional stroll through more relaxed notions. Every Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Crosstalk with Sarah Cross, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Here we go. Second hour. You're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the number one listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button, and that helps out with the operation of the station. There's no sponsors, and we don't have to say what the sponsors tell us to say. That's probably the best way of putting it. You can get into the archives for free, so you can. If you like a host, the archive's are there. Download them, MP3s, binge. I don't need to tell you anymore. If you're watching this in the future on YouTube, this is an archive of our show, and you can like, subscribe, comment, and share it to try and help us out. That'd be tremendous. And we have a Patreon as well. So now, Mecky, I'm going to say that people can get merchandise from the station's website. Cups, hats, t-shirts, mugs, and things like that. And that's Revolution Radio. It's pretty cool. Do it. And if you're interested, Mecky and I have our own. Go to our website, shinysideout.net, and there is a Zazzle page there. We can buy mugs and t-shirts and things like that, hoodies. But there's a 20-ounce mug, which is great for soup if it's winter. It's a very big coffee, let me tell you. You're probably a quadruple shot in there, and I hope you're up to it. But, you can do a milkshake if you want. It's all good. I always find my kids with soup in it, and it's big enough to put one of those packets of noodles and do noodles in it. So do that as well. Now, I'm going to thank every one of the listeners for tuning in live. Do that, and I appreciate it. Mecky and I have been doing this. Is this the 13th year? Something like that crazy, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I stopped counting. But think about this. This is show number 647. 648, what was I saying? And we're going to be talking about megalithic builders part 4. It's really important that you pay close attention. If you've only caught the show, there's 3 others to catch up to where we are. But I think each kind of stands on their own, and we don't cover old ground again. But anyway, Mecky, we're talking about fathoming the ruins of Yanmen Shan Mountain and the biggest cut rocks in the world.
That's right, and there are differing opinions here, and there's some really interesting pictures here. And I got to say, when I saw these pictures, and looked at also the context of the surrounding landscape, it is something else entirely. If you haven't heard of this, it's okay. But the whole point of the show is to highlight and outline that this megalithic kind of construction is all over the world, everywhere. And this is probably looking at the single biggest piece of rock that was tried to be cut ever that we've come across. And there's a picture there. I don't know if we've got it as part of our pictures. But
it is. It was showing.
Oh, great. Mm-hmm. And essentially what it shows to the left of it, as you look into the cut rock, there's a whole bunch of rocks that must have been cut before. They're no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this rock is still there, but all the other rocks that may very well have been there are no longer there. So, and there are differing opinions here. So bear with us. We've got the official opinion on this, and then we've got some people that are asking some very pointed questions along ourselves, of course. And this was updated April 28, 2023 by Winston Hall. Along the side of Yanmenshan Mountain, located 20 kilometers to the east of Nanjing, China, the legendary Yangsheng quarry can be found. Although it is believed to have been in use from at least the time of the Six Dynasties, that's 220 to 589 AD, the majority of the work at Yangsheng is still attributed to the wave of construction that took place after the Ming Dynasty was founded in 1368 AD, when the new emperor, Zhu Yuanzhang, chose nearby Nanjing to become his capital city. As the story goes, the emperor's son ordered the construction of a gigantic stele in 1405 AD for the Mingjialing Mausoleum, which had been built by his father, and was then later completed during the reign of his son. Nothing like starting your own gravestone and having your son finish it. The Yangshan Mountain Quarry was chosen by the city's stonemasons. They were then said to have cut and crafted 3 enormous blocks from the mountainside before finally coming to the realization that the blocks they had been cutting were far too big, at which point they abandoned the effort in favor of a more realistic project. So essentially what they're saying is they went there, they wanted to cut some really, really big stones. They thought, they're too big. We've cut them too big, so let's just do something else entirely. Now, how big were these blocks that they mistakenly sized up? The stele that these masons did end up creating for the emperor, the one they actually finished, is 6.7 meters tall, about 22 feet, and 8.78 meters long. It's a tortoise, 29 feet. If you include the height of the stone tortoise it's perched on, and altogether with the tortoise would weigh right around 100 tons. Not all that impressive, to be honest. If assembled, the stele that they were said to have mistakenly attempted would have been over 8 times as tall. 8 times as tall. 73 meters high.
73 meters.
Yeah, and over 310 times its weight, or about 31,000 tons. So I will go on in the text. I want you to understand that initially they wanted to create a statue. A stele is like a figurine, a tortoise essentially, right, with a little column sticking out. The initial one was meant to weigh 31,000 tons. 31,000 tons. The one they settled on weighed 100 tons. Talk about falling short of your aim. Aim for the stars, son. Aim for the stars. Yeah, okay. For reference, a typical car weighs between 1 and 1.5 tons. The largest monolith, which we actually talked about in the ancient and modern world, is the 1,250-ton Thunderstone, which was moved by the Russians in 1770, resembling a rough outcropping that was never carved, but it was also dragged around. It was never lifted. It was dragged around. We discussed this in the last show. There are a couple of pictures here. The stele, the tortoise. I mean, it's a nice piece of work. It's not like, as far as megalithic structures are concerned, this turtle with a pole sticking out is not going to turn any heads. I can tell you that. Okay. However, the piece of rock they carved out of the mountainside, and they did carve it out of the mountainside. That's like an apartment building. That's what it looks like. Okay? Now, a monument to failure. If taken as the authentic history it's presented as, this story would be alarming for a number of reasons. So what the author here is saying is, if we believe the official story, there's some serious issues. What would have led the emperor's master masons to believe that they could transport 3 blocks totaling 31,000 tons, 20 kilometers through the mountains?
Through the mountains. Yeah.
Magic. How could the construction of the emperor's grand gift to his father have been entrusted to such a thoroughly incompetent group? That's a good point, actually. Especially when considering that overall, this was this were rather many enormous blunders taking place over a very, very long period, and would have involved a substantial number of people. So this is not one mistake, because the thing is, like I said, they carved this thing out. You can see it, right? So this is not something when they realized, oh, geez, maybe we've bitten off too much that we can chew. This would have gone on for years before they realized, oh, this might have been a bad idea.
I get paid by the hour, Mackie. It's all good, right?
Yeah. So the question would have been then from the project manager, hey, Bob, or Jane, how much of the budget do we have left? Oh, we've got enough for a 100-ton statue. Yeah, let's do that quick. They might not even notice it. Oh, this looks very small. Yeah, because it's very far away, sir. I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
It's all perspective.
Okay, so yeah, it seems preposterous that the effort wouldn't have been halted almost immediately, let alone being allowed to begin in the first place. Because this would have been a stone cutting operation of unprecedented prominence and certainly a pedigree. The severe differences in the size, placement, and shape of the cuts indicate that they were never meant to be placed together or even moved. If they were, they also wouldn't have all been cut at the same time and in such disparate fashion. Consider the long-running conflict that was being fought with the Mongols, which was soaking up much of their resources and attention, and the fact that only years later the country's bankrupt treasury couldn't even manage to find the funds to create a single print of the newly created encyclopedia. This strenuous period doesn't exactly appear to be the time to embark on one of the most intense and immense engineering projects known to man, a project that would have amounted to nothing more than an art piece. Now, to put this in perspective, they were actually trying to move a small mountain as an art installation, Dave. Why don't you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. So Yangshan was more than a quarry. There hardly seems to be a need to reconcile this curious tale, as a quick review of the site reveals a multitude of inclusions that would never have made it if the site was simply a quarry. For instance, in the image above, and the three outcroppings of rocks can be seen. I don't have that image with me. These at first might be seen as sites to attach ropes. Oh, hang on. Let me just do this so people can see what I'm talking about.
They're the same knobs that we find on all the other megalithic structures.
Exactly.
Right? Except they're a lot bigger.
Yeah, they are. And there's also unusual cylindrical cuts at the bottom. And a geologist is pointing out here that the rock seems to have been made of compressed earth at some point, rammed earth, a long time ago. Because this kind of things you get if you were making rammed earth bricks, for instance, and you then cut one lengthways, vertically, then you would see the same kind of things in there, because that's what happens. You get pockets. All right. They can only be found on some of the stones, these protrusions. And they're also clustered on a single side on some of those stones. Many of the protrusions are also fully rounded and would make for poor grips for rope. So you can't, if you've got a cone shape, even a rounded cone, you can't really put a rope on it because it just gets loose. It's loose if it goes upwards. So certain ones are also beneath the area where the block would have been cut. That's very strange. Also, as can be seen in the same picture, smooth cylindrical segments have been removed in a place that would serve no purpose if the blocks were to be removed. It becomes even harder to accept that these blocks were ever intended to be moved when examining the patterns carved into the walls of the rooms that have been created beneath these giant masses of stone, as seen in the picture below. So I can see that. I'm showing it. It's extraordinary. And look, they've squared these rooms off, which is also really bizarre. So why do it? Why do it now? That's one question. But why do it at all? So the patterns carved into the walls of the rooms that have been created beneath these giant masses of stones. Yeah, I get that. All right, so a display of entopic phenomena. Engraved a centimeter or more, and sometimes deeper than an inch, these patterns appear to have been worked into the interior surfaces of these structures, much in the same way that entopic phenomena was incorporated into some of the oldest cave art sites in the world. Entopic phenomena in an archaeological context are patterns that naturally occur within the eye or brain, which are then used as a motif for art when their occurrence in a normal human's experience is greatly increased due to that person undergoing an altered state of consciousness. In other words, our ancient ancestors used to put themselves into altered states of consciousness, typically through the use of naturally occurring psychedelic compounds. And they would then carve or paint entopic phenomena, among other things, inside of caves and on rock faces. If the engraving at this site was truly indicative of entoptic phenomena, this realization might help to place the site into a much deeper period of antiquity, as the other examples of entoptic phenomena in cave art typically receive dates on the order of tens of thousands of years old. For more of this, look into the work of David Lewis Williams. To be clear, these long engraved patterns of lines are certainly not the aftermath of the stone in these openings simply being removed, at least not by any tools or techniques attributed to ancient man, though many, particularly along the side walls, do resemble what remains after a pass of a modern heavy excavator. We
That's
have
exactly what it looks like.
grinding wheels and things like that with
100%.
multiple blades that make that same pattern, yes. So why would the workers said to be quarrying these blocks go through the trouble? The designs appear artistic, similar to what might be found in ritual space. Additionally, strangely enough, they don't appear to have been made by a basic chisel. Okay.
A staggering amount of rock was moved. I think that has to be that has to be said here. And once you see like an aerial picture of the entire site, the statement becomes a lot more meaningful. So if you have the time, look at there's some really good sites that have some really great pictures if you get the time. One particularly bizarre aspect of the site is just how much stone appears to have been moved. Looking at the spaces between the major blocks and the surrounding mountains, it looks as if millions of tons of rock have been removed. The region is known to have been a quarry for some time, though this explanation would hardly seem to account for the staggering amount of rock that appears to have been moved. In addition, if the site was used to quarry rock and then take it elsewhere, it was done so in a very bizarre fashion, as if there was a contrived effort to live behind towering flat walls. This isn't found at any other ancient quarries. In fact, in no quarries. I live right next to a quarry, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, my house, or the suburb I'm in, was built in an old gravel pit.
That's
here.
right.
And most of the gravel and stone that Sydney was built out of came out of this very gravel pit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you sort of, as the crow flies, if you draw a line from my house across the mountains, the highest point between Sydney and the Blue Mountains, right to Prospect Reservoir,
yep,
you will come to a stone quarry. Now, a stone quarry is usually a very interesting thing to look at because it is a stepped kind of affair.
That's right.
There hardly ever, or at least I have not seen stone quarries that have sheer cliffs, because it is easier to work in a stepped fashion. You just dig deeper into the mountain, and you can then from the bottom up as well. You can then cut away the rock that you need. It's easier than just having to deal with the sheer cliff. Never mind the height of it, but also the weight of anything you cut off from it would be much higher than if you had it stepped like a rice terrace.
Mm-hmm.
A more reasonable explanation, going back to the text, would seem to be that whoever initially worked at the site did so to create the structures found at the site. It had been an immense project, though not entirely without precedent. The Long Yu caves, which we've discussed, which are a few hundred miles away, are considered to be one of the ancient world's biggest engineering projects, though no one can determine who made them or why. A similar amount of stone would have been displaced in the area on Yanmen Shan. The Long Yu caves are also have very similar patterns of engraved lines, like those seen in the images that are here, part of the text, and I think Dave might have been able to put up. But the point is this here, right? The Long Yu caves, we have no idea. Because when they were found, they were flooded. And there's no record of anyone ever creating these caves. The local people have had no idea of these. So, which would speak to a fairly old piece of work, if it's not even existing in mythological memory anymore. Now, if the site really is the ruins of some incredibly ancient culture, there's a possibility that they might have lessened their workload by using rubble masonry stonework and rammed earth building techniques to shape different parts of the area. The techniques are rather simple. Rubble masonry, for instance, is the process of mixing small rocks with cement, then using that material to fill in wooden frames to make walls or blocks, and would have been employed in an adding, subtracting manner. As the workers would break apart certain areas of rock, they'd use the rubble to fill in other areas of the site, piecing together giant stone creations while they carved out others. Dave?
Yeah, totally. All right, so unanswered mystery. There's more to this site than it being a simple quarry. However, its original purpose is tough to discern. What is known is that at least some material has been taken from this site, so it's likely that those operations would have taken apart any smaller stone structures, as well as removing anything that might be considered valuable or precious, such as what might be found in a temple. Further, shrouding the site in mystery is the intense level of secrecy China maintains in regards to some of its strangest ancient ruins. Many sites are completely restricted, and in general, it's almost impossible to gain admission to dig at or research any historical site. Even more frustrating, as well as bizarre, is that the existence of certain megalithic sites is simply denied. For instance, the hundreds of pyramids that cover China's landscape weren't acknowledged until more recent times, and at first these structures were downplayed as handful of small Han-era burial mounds. To this day, the areas with the largest and most interesting structures are off limits. A few well-known burial mounds are available to the public, and it's explained that any other pyramid-like structures that exist are just like the ones that can be seen, have access to. Also, it's interesting to note that the Chinese government has since gone out of their way to cover up these pyramids with fast-growing species of conifer, seemingly for the purpose of masking their presence from aerial photography while degrading their structure. There was a mission to cover all of the pyramid with this so that you can't really tell they're there. You'll see a completely flat field and a four-sided, triangular shaped pyramid now covered in trees. Well, good for them. That's all I'm going to say. Who wants people trampling around? I don't know. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to put that on the screen. So, a beautifully precise scoop for no apparent reason out of a large rock. As this is the case with most of our world's oldest existing works of art and architecture, this creation seems to belong to a disparate culture that embodied a way of life radically different than our own. And just like other ancient megalithic sites, it would seem its builders utilized techniques that have long since been lost. A body of techniques that likely arose from an entirely different tree of engineering which allowed for the working and movement, more importantly, of enormous stones to be a far more practical endeavor.
And that's really the kicker here, because the one thing that Dave and I keep asking about this, because this is the second time we are having the show cycle. The last time was about 6 years ago, something like that. Is why?
Why? Absolutely.
Why? I mean, the how is not important, because clearly it was done.
They did it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was done. So, but why? Why would you create a rod for your own back? There's actually, since we're talking about all these commandments, the first commandment of engineering is simplicity.
That's right.
Like you make your work as simple and as easy and as safe as you can possibly make it. Okay, you don't overcomplicate things by making them heavier or larger than you can possibly handle. It's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sensible. It's not good engineering. Now, are we saying that these people were stupid? Well, clearly not, because what they did, we would be hard pressed equaling today, right? I mean, we have dynamite and heavy machinery, so we could do it, right? It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be cheap, and maybe some things we couldn't do. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why do it this way when I say we, I'm talking about the establishment, doesn't allow for them to have explosive and heavy machinery, etc., right? Because, I mean, if you look at this, and you really have to, the thing is you have to look at the pictures in order to fully appreciate the scope.
Yeah.
If you send like 1,000 people with bronze and copper tools into the mountains and say, okay, this is the job. And they go, yeah, okay, brother. How about you do it?
Go ahead, I'll wait for you.
And these are, again, I mean, I'm always impressed by the scale of Baalbek. And you know, it's the Jupiter Temple there. I mean, I've made no secret of this. But when we came across this in our researches, now this information hasn't always been available. In fact, these sites, they're not a recent discovery, but for the West they are.
Yeah.
For Western people. But when I saw them, I was awed. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I look at these pictures of the Yangshan Quarry, and this is literally, it's an apartment building on its site. That's what they quarried out there. That's
totally.
And huge. Not a small apartment building.
No.
Right? And it is quite intricate. I mean, the site itself is quite intricate. You know, I mean, there's a couple of pictures here. It reminds me of nothing so much as like a World War II bunker kind of thing.
That's what it looks like to me too.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what it is. Please don't say that I said ancient aliens bought bunkers or built bunkers. I'm not saying that. Okay, please. But yeah, so it's really odd. But what it does highlight, though, and this is really the point of this entire show cycle, that the megalithic culture that existed at some point, including these really strange protrusions on the rocks, these megalithic rocks, right? These knobs. Even those are the same all over the world.
Yeah.
Here in China as well, you've got these knobs, and they look exactly the same, albeit larger, as the knobs you would find in South America.
That's
and elsewhere.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it is clear that, well, at least to me it is clear, and who am I? But there is a connecting culture, albeit through knowledge transfer, right? Like trade, or just having engineers and scientists travel between continents, or one globally spanning civilization or culture. I don't know which one it was, but certainly whoever they were around the world, they influenced each other. That is certain.
Yeah.
That much is certain. And not all exactly the same and for the exact same purposes. And this is where it gets really difficult, Dave. Because the date. We can't really date, we can date rock, but so what? So this rock is 500 million years old. That doesn't help me. What we can't do is date when it was carved.
That's right.
Or worked, unless we find some organic material near it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but who's to say that this organic material is in any way related to it unless we find it underneath? But even then, you could argue, well, maybe the rock fell on it.
That's right.
After it was carved. I mean, who knows, right? So it becomes really, really hard to date. So what scientists have done, archaeologists, as well as what people like to call fringe or non-accredited scientists, they look to the stars to date some of these structures. Right? Astronomy, if you will. And then some of the sites are aligned to stars.
Are replicas to a pattern of stars, yep.
Yeah, which would, this is, of course, where everybody goes, yeah, this one's crazy, which would push it back tens of thousands of years into the past in some instances, if not all.
But then you can't go too far back because we shouldn't have been able to do it.
We shouldn't have been able to do it.
That's the other problem. Yeah.
That's right. Göbekli Tepe and this is actually something I was going to say here. Göbekli Tepe and the entire complex around Göbekli Tepe, which is massive, by the way.
Yeah.
Massive. And we're saying how massive it is. The South American structure is massive. And it was buried on purpose. And what's happening now, this is really interesting. They're planting trees on the unexcavated hills at Göbekli Tepe. And they're doing the same thing here in China.
Just ignore it. Don't. It's not there, really.
But I want to know who does it, because in Göbekli Tepe and other sites, it is the World Economic Forum that seems to have its fingers in this.
That's right.
I wonder if it's the same for China. Does the World Economic Forum have its fingers?
I don't think the World Economic Forum has as much control over the East as it does over the West.
Oh, I think that's true.
Because I don't think. Let's say I don't see the CCP or the ByteDance, for instance, as being an active member and party member, or even in attendance for the World Economic Forum.
So maybe there are other channels. See, and again, the WEF and the the IMF and all the other Bilderbergers, the Club of Rome, etc., etc. These are the organizations we see and are allowed to see. Those are sort of red herrings. If you spend all your time trying to investigate those organizations, you'll uncover some things, but ultimately it'll be completely pointless. Who cares?
Yeah, you won't see connections to another. Let's call it an authority of. And we did a show on it, Mickey. Let's pretend the use of the words 9 unknown men.
Yeah, that's right. I like your term though, the authority. I think it's sort of nicely encapsulating. I think. But essentially, the authority of the 9 unknown men, I don't care what you call them, you will never see, and you will only ever see a shadow of a touch. But the more shadows of touches you see, the more inescapable comes to conclusion that yes, there is something that is guiding well beyond what we can see, well beyond what we can investigate, and well beyond any true scrutiny. But it's like, what's the best analogy? Let me think here. So let's say you're walking through the snow, right? You keep walking through the snow the same way every day, and after a while, through the forest as well, there's like you create a trail. And all the animals make the same trail, right?
Yep.
And maybe you'll never see an animal making that trail, but you walk it, so you know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know how it got there, but there it is. There's this trail there, okay, in the snow, and then through the forest, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we've got some animal highways on my land. Yep.
Bingo, exactly, right? But nobody would argue that it exists because there it is. But just because you haven't seen it being made doesn't mean it's not real, right? So this is the same. You can see the footprints in the snow. They might disappear after a while, but the overall animal highway, as it were, it remains. And the animals use it, and you might even see animals using it, right? But why they would have chosen that particular path, or who came up with the first idea, et cetera, no one knows. It's the same with this organization. You can see their touches all over. You can see how the human race, in many ways, has been steered towards certain things. Not always smoothly. I'm not saying that this is a super organization which has us controlled completely. Not at all.
No.
Not at all. It is certainly very successful, and has been in recent times even more so with the advancement of technology, which made it a lot easier to do a lot of things to a lot of people at the same time. The biggest thing, of course, was what we discovered in 2020. What we discovered was being done to us in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The single biggest effort, medical, social engineering,
Yep.
was ever undertaken in recorded history globally.
Yeah.
But these megalithic structures show the same kind of footprint, the same kind of goal, I want to say, because clearly you don't create these kinds of structures just for the fun of it. There has to be a goal. I don't care how sophisticated we are. I don't care how easy it is to do something like this. A higher purpose has to be kept in mind. What that is, no idea. But
It
clearly,
appears to me, Becky, by the photograph of this one, that they didn't have a level.
it seems that way, doesn't it?
That I'm probably wrong. I think those nubs, rather than being for the use of ropes, is more likely the result of their softening apparatus.
Possibly.
Because where all the knobs are on the megalithic work doesn't appear to have been for the use of lifting them, because the nubs aren't in places where you could have a rope around it. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
And using it as a lifting point. So
That's right.
if there was a machine that you put up against the rock and you turned it on and it made the rock soft enough at least, like putty, then you could, the effort of carving it would be much easier.
Oh, absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
maybe you turn it to rock.
Yeah.
Like
Again.
baking a cake. You've got a whole bunch of liquid and then you bake it using heat and it's a chemical reaction, but it turns it into a cake that can't be liquid again.
Right, exactly. We don't know, but something clearly was done, right? And that's
and a
very
surprise,
true.
Becky, to find it around the world.
In very similar and sometimes eerily similar ways. Now I'm looking at this picture for the Yangshan Quarry Megalith, a further view, the very first picture that's there.
Yep.
To me, it looks like, I don't know if you can maybe share it, but to me it looks like the left side looks sunk, like it actually sunk.
Yeah.
Into the ground a little.
I'd hope so. That was my comment about the level.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it does appear that may have happened. Now, if it is sunk, it means it's not part of the bedrock, but it was lifted and moved there. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying if it is sunk, then that's what would have happened.
But it's huge. Like a person standing up wouldn't be even halfway up in those three windows. Not even halfway, because there's little structures off to the right, which look like you could stand up in.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
There's a dude, I think, standing next to that.
Oh yeah, I see it. Yep.
And you're absolutely right. He's like half up to that first window there, or whatever.
Yeah, crazy.
If that.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another text here, which is a further view on the quarry. The Yangshan quarry from the Chinese Yangshan Beichai, literally meaning Yangshan stele material, is an ancient stone quarry near Nanjing. It was used for many centuries as a source of stone for buildings and monuments of Nanjing, and today it is preserved as a historic site. The quarry is famous for the gigantic unfinished stele that was abandoned there. 3 unfinished stele components remain in the Yangshan quarry to this day, only partially separated from the solid rock of the mountain. The actual dimensions and weight estimates of the stele are as follows. The stele base, 30.35 meters long, 30 meters thick, 16 meters tall, and weighing 16,000 metric tons. The stele body, 49 meters long. This would be the height if the stele were to be properly installed, 10 meters or 10.7 meters wide, and 4.4 meters thick, and weighing 8,799 tons. Finally, the stele head, 10.7 meters tall, 20.3 meters wide, 4.8 meters thick, and weighing 6,118 tons. According to experts, if the stele had been finished and put completely together, meaning installing the stele body vertically on the base and topping it with the stele head, it would have stood 73 meters tall.
That's ridiculous.
Now, today,
Mhm.
We can't lift 16,000 tons. Full stop. Full stop.
No.
We can't lift 9,000 tons. Could we? If we build a special crane, I want to say
Yes.
maybe. No, yeah. The 60,000, I'm not too sure.
It doesn't mean we'd move it anywhere. We lift it once.
Exactly. Now,
Mhm.
the text goes on. According to the accepted theories, the Yongle Emperor ordered the cutting of a gigantic stele which was destined to the Ming Xiaoling mausoleum of his late father, as we discovered. 3 separate pieces were cut: the base, the stele body, and the head, the crown. After most of the stone cutting work was done, however, architects realized that moving such large stones from Yangqing to Ming Xiaoling, let alone installing them in an appropriate way, would not be physically possible. As a result, the project was inevitably abandoned. Now, remember, this is a different text from a different author. This theory, however, is debated by some research due to the fact that the Chinese engineers at the time were skilled enough to foresee the impossibility of moving such a stone and therefore avoiding committing such a naive mistake. For these reasons, many believe that this ancient Chinese civilization actually had the knowledge and resources to lift and carry the stone. Okay, now this is a different author from from a different article with a different point of view. And I'm telling you, this when I saw it, this is the most impressive megalithic site that I've seen. No, it's like a whale. That's what it is. It's like a really
like a
big
whale. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Made of
It's just-
stone.
It's just nuts.
And look, I think the why, because it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
That
And
you
well,
should make something this ridiculous.
there's a really good resource here, which we can share maybe in the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Exploring the mysteries of megalithic China. Alberto Cruz, PhD, has been studying megalithic China for 3 years. And at that time, he has visited 23 confirmed megalithic sites and identified 22 additional sites which were likely of megalithic origin in China that he wants to visit in the near future. And the site that he has is www.megalithicchina.com. And it has some great pictures. It also has the site listings, if you're interested. So this is a really good resource if you're interested in megalithic China. Alberto
I've copied
Cruz.
that into the chat room.
Thanks, brother. Why don't you tell us, Dave, about the place that broke history?
Oh, you know what? It's been a favorite of mine. The same as Pumapunku. It's that broke me from that period of time. But we will spend a lot of time looking at Göbekli Tepe throughout this show cycle. Early stone complexes in eastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe. At a number of sites in southeastern Turkey, ceremonial complexes. Oh, it's always a ceremony complex, isn't it? With large T-shaped megalithic orthostats dating from the pre-pottery Neolithic, that's PPN, 9600 to 7000 BC, has been discovered at the most famous of these sites, Göbekli Tepe, because there's other tepes, it just means hill. Parts of the oldest level 3, have been C14 dated as far back as to the mid-10th millennium BC. On this level, 20 great stone circles, up to 20 meters in diameter, with standing stones up to 7 meters high, have been identified. At least 5 of these circles have so far, this is from 2019, been excavated. You probably won't see any more. Many of the standing stones are richly ornamented, that's the one, yes, with carved reliefs, bears, boars, snakes, foxes, wildcats, oroch, gazelle, quadruped reptiles, birds, spiders, insects. We have quadrupeds, scorpions as well, and many other animals. In addition to some of the stones are carved in low profile with stylized human features, arms, hands, loincloths, but no heads. On the younger level, this level 2, rectangular structures with smaller megaliths have been excavated. In the surrounding area, several village sites incorporating elements similar to those of Göbekli Tepe have been identified. 4 of these have Göbekli Tepe's characteristic T-shaped standing stones, though only one of them, Nevali Kori, has so far been excavated. At Göbekli Tepe itself, no traces of habitation have so far been found, nor any trace of agriculture or cultivated plants, though bones of wild animals and traces of wild edible plants, along with many grinding stones, have been unearthed. It is thus assumed that these structures, which have been characterized as the first known ceremonial architecture, were erected by hunter-gatherers. Göbekli Tepe's oldest structures are about 7,000 years older than the Stonehenge megaliths, and it is doubtful that any of the European megaliths traditions are derived from them. Meki.
Middle Eastern megaliths. Dolmens and standing stones have been found in large areas of the Middle East, starting at the Turkish border in the north of Syria, close to Aleppo, southwards down to Yemen. They can be encountered in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Israel, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. The largest concentration can be found in southern Syria and along the Jordan Rift Valley. However, they're being threatened with destruction. They date from the late Chalcolithic, early Bronze Age. The megaliths have also been found on Kark Island and Firouz Mian in Iran and Barabalka in Iraq. Excuse me. The most concentrated occurrence of dolmens in particular is in a large area on both sides of the Jordan Rift Valley, with greater predominance on the eastern side. They occur first and foremost on the Golan Heights, the Hauran in Jordan, which probably has the largest concentration of dolmen in the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, only very few dolmen have been identified so far in the Hejaz. They seem, however, to re-emerge in Yemen in small numbers, and thus could indicate a continuous tradition related to those of Somalia and Ethiopia, of course, in Africa. The standing stone has a very ancient tradition in the Middle East, dating back from Mesopotamian times. Although not always megalithic in the true sense, they occur throughout the Orient and can reach 5 meters or more in some cases, such as the Adair in Jordan. This phenomenon can also be traced through many passages from the Old Testament, such as those related to Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, who poured oil over a stone that he erected after his famous dream in which angels climbed to heaven. Jacob's ladder, if you're familiar with the Bible. Jacob is also described as putting up stones at other occasions, whereas Moses erected 12 pillars symbolizing the tribes of Israel. The tradition of venerating standing stones continued in Nabatean times and is reflected in, for example, the Islamic rituals surrounding the Kaaba and nearby pillars. Related phenomena such as cup holes, rock-cut tombs, and circles also occur in the Middle East.
African megaliths. The Nabta Playa at the southwest corner of the western Egyptian desert was once a large lake in the Nubian desert, located 500 miles south of modern-day Cairo. By the 5th millennium BC, the peoples of Nabta Playa had fashioned an astronomical device that accurately marks the summer solstice. Finding indicates that the region was occupied only seasonally, likely only in the summer when the local lake filled with water for grazing cattle. There are other megalithic stone circles in the southwestern desert. Namora Tonga, a group of megaliths dated 300 BC, was used by Cushitic speaking people as an alignment with star systems tuned to a lunar calendar of 354 days. This discovery was made by B.N. Lynch and L.H. Robbins of Michigan State University. Additionally, Tia in central Ethiopia has a number of megaliths. Some of the ancient structures feature engravings, and the area is a World Heritage Site. Megaliths are also found within the Valley of Marvels in the eastern Haraji area. Meki, I just keep hearing all of these same places that America and the world is focused on recently. You know, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Maybe there's some historical significance to this. Maybe there's something that they were all looking for.
I think, yes, I think you're 100% correct. I think that's absolutely the truth. And I think, in fact, excuse me, I think it is a feature of today. Not forget the oil for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
But think about where all this fighting is happening. One of the most, heavily disputed areas in the world is exactly around that area that we just mentioned here, right? The Middle East, the Levant, down into Saudi Arabia, etc., and then even into Africa itself, into Africa proper. And yeah, I think that this is not just about oil. This is about ancient structures, ancient history, ancient technology, dare I say it. And I think the powers that be are very much interested in the things that are there. And more interested in hiding them, I think, than telling us about it. But I think you're absolutely right. Now, I know we only have a few moments left, so I do want to talk about the cranes still for a second, because I looked them up just now. So if you cast your mind back, just very quickly, to the Yangshan, how heavy these actual stones were. So we have here the heaviest would have been 16,000 metric tons, right? 16,000 metric tons.
Mm-hmm.
Now the strongest. This is the strongest mobile crane in the world. It's a Liebherr LTM 111200-9.1. Okay, they can be moved around. It's got 9 axle. It's the boom length, telescopic boom length, is 320 feet, and maximum hoist height is 616 feet. And it's an 8-cylinder diesel engine, and it can lift 1,200 tons. That's it. The tallest tower crane, which is an installation that is actually in place, you have to actually install it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about twice the height of the Empire State Building.
Wow.
The Kroll 10,000. So the maximum load capacity, though, is only 240 tons.
Yeah, right.
Right? The crane height is 470 feet, but it can rotate 360 degrees. And the area covered by the crane, once you've constructed, is 7.5 acres.
Oh, wow.
Just to be clear. Okay. Now, the most powerful crane in the world is the Tyson. The Tyson is a stationary crane you would find at ports.
Yeah,
like
right.
the thing that lifts the container ships, etc.
Sure.
Okay, right, that's what it is. The maximum load capacity. Now, this is a stationary structure. It's not so much a crane as it is like an elevator on steroids in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
The maximum load capacity is 20,000 tons. The height of the crane is 436 feet. The span length is 393 feet, and the wire rope length, which really drives the lifting capacity, is 31 miles. Okay? It can lift the equivalent of 8,000 Ford F-150 trucks. But,
wow.
Like I said, it's the stuff that you see in major ports. Okay? And it's not moving anywhere. It just stays there. That's where it is.
So Meki, you think about how tall the 73 meters was that they wanted to lift. That if you times that by 3, you'll get feet roughly, and it's 219 feet tall.
Yeah, we need modern machinery today to do this, and not just modern machinery. We need machinery of the most sophisticated and I guess highly high quality construction as well, because these are not cranes that go around easily. Yeah, the mobile crane that I just told you, right, that can lift 1,200 tons. So the mobile crane could have lifted the Baalbek stones, no problem. Couldn't have lifted any of the Chinese stones here, though, right?
No.
But but it would have had a problem with the heavier, because the Baalbek stones, they didn't stop at 1,200 tons. There were a couple of ones that have been excavated that are heavier. But to lift really heavy, you have to have a stationary construction, which is massive.
There's the music. This is the end of Dave Mackey's Shiny Side Out for another week. And during the week, you can catch us at Tuesday and Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern US time from Plato's Cave. And in the meantime, Mackey, what do we do?
Be safe!